Greetings and welcome everyone to the Great North Pagan Podcast. This is Thomas Punton calling in. It's Wednesday, December 19th, 2012. Well, I hope you all are planning to have a Merry Christmas, Happy Yule, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays all the way around. Anyway, after spending wonderful Solomon traditions, we're getting ready for Yule here, and today we're going to discuss about different forms of divination. And with me tonight is Erin Lecy. So
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast. Well, would you like to tell the fine viewers out there a little bit about yourself?
Oh, I suppose. I am from the Twin Cities and just moved up here to Fargo a few months ago. I am new to the pagan world. Several friends have inducted me, and I am starting to study pagan culture, pagan life. So, hello.
Well, welcome and merry meet, Erin. Mm-hmm. Well, today we're going to talk about different forms of divination again and what's been used in paganism nowadays. Now, this is something that can't be completed in just one sitting, so we're going to start out with the most common ones most people know about. Tarot cards, astrology, and the crystal ball. One thing also well to note, something that I didn't realize myself when I first started doing tarot cards right away, is that if you're interested in these forms, it's always do a good cleansing, which is an episode we will focus on later on. Just like any tools of the trade you naturally use, the same thing goes with these forms of divination as well. So to start out, we'll talk about the tarot cards, and first their little history background. First known documented tarot cards were created between 1430 and 1550 in Milan, Ferrara, and Bologna in northern Italy, and were additional trump cards with allegro illustrations were added to the common four-suit pack. These new decks were occasionally called Carte de Trifone, trump cards, and additional cards known simply as Trifoni, which become trumps in English. The first literally evidence of the existence of the Carte de Trifoni is in the written statement to the court records of Ferrara in 1442. The oldest surviving tarot cards are from 15 fragmented decks painted in the mid-15th century for the Viscosa family, the rulers of Milan. Francosus Rebellus gives tarot as the names as one of the games played by Garucha and Pantagruel, and I apologize if I'm slaughtering in the pronunciations of this. This is likely the earliest attention of the French form of the name. Tarot cards are used throughout most of Europe to play card games, and in English-speaking countries where these games are largely unplayed, tarot cards are now used primarily for divinatory purposes. Occultists call the trump cards the full and the major arcana, while the 10, pip, and 4 court cards in each suit are called minor arcana. The cards are traced by some occult writers to ancient Egypt or the Kabbalah, but there is no documented evidence of such origins of the usage of tarot and divination before the 18th century. And one thing that was interesting to note about a lot of these early decks is there was about around 24 cards of them, because of course back then they didn't have the printing press. They were all painted in, so you can only do so much per deck. Nowadays there are many different decks. Now the first one I ever had was the animal deck, which is one I use to this very day. But then there's also the forms that pagans would know too. Like for example, I have also an Egyptian deck. Also, there's many of them you can find from pop culture, like from the Marvel Universe, the Peanuts comic strip. There's even some for the steampunks. Now, when you're doing a tarot card reading, when a person asks you a question, there is different forms called a spread. Some major common ones. The first one is the Celtic cross, where 10 cards are used, 5 arranged in the cross, and 4 placed vertically beside the cross. There is what I commonly use is the horseshoe, where 7 cards are arranged in a V shape. And then there's, if you want to get simple and to the point, there is ones where you use 3 cards, just having the past, present, and future. Then there's the star spread, which is almost like in a circular motion, almost like the pentacle in a sense. And then there's the astrological spread, 12 cards spread in a circle to represent the 12 signs of the zodiac. Now, when you do a reading, as well as you decipher the meaning of the cards, and when you start out, you all have a guide to go with, and there's nothing wrong to use it. Hopefully in time you get understanding of the cards. And also what happens is what's referred to the reverse card. When you pull a card out, it will be upside down. Now, some methods of this interpret as being the opposite. Although what's commonly known for it is also that it is also seen as just a different meaning. For instance, the Sun card might be associated with satisfaction, gratitude, health, happiness, strength, inspiration. While in reverse, it can be interpreted as a mean lack of confidence and mild unhappiness. But, like I said, most cards will have the guidebook, and I've seen it varies that some will have the definition of the reversal, some do not. And when you get understanding of the tarot cards, you sometimes have to use your best judgment. I mean, for myself, when I've done tarot card readings, I use my better instincts. Sometimes I'll go with a reversal, sometimes it might come to me as a different meaning. Have you seen that, Erin, if you've done it?
I'm more into astrology, as we'll discuss later, than I am tarot, but, every deck has its own interpretations. That's what I've learned.
Yeah. Well, that's understandable. But for me, and once again, there's many different types of spreads of these cards. I mean, for me, I've done with the horseshoe type. Mainly because the fact it shows the past, the present, and then the future outcome. And then I use also the star spread because in questions where if I've been asked about some situation where a change has been wanted, that spread also comes in handy because when the cards are printed out, it'll ask what needs to be changed. And and again, this is a common form of tarot card decks. One thing I also want to note that, in case you're wondering, death does not mean you're going to die. It actually means change or transformation. And some decks, it will vary. I mean, for example, my animal deck does not have the devil, but my Egyptian deck does. Now, of course, that means that one of the other cards is a different meaning, of course. And that's something you will see in time. And also they can come in different sizes and shapes. They're not always your traditional playing card shape. For example, the Celtic deck is actually where the cards are round, circular. But it still can have its very same purpose. So with that is the tarot. So we're going to take a break right now. We'll play some wonderful music, and when we'll come back, we're going to discuss about that of the astrology. So you don't go away for 1 second.
'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. When we find ourselves in the place just right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. When we find ourselves in the place just right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turns will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. Just right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you love that music by Circle of Women. Well, now we'll get to talk about astrology, which is another common form of divination. You probably have heard it on television, probably seen it in your local newspaper. Erin here is quite a studier and practitioner of astrology. And if you want, you can give a nice, good history background if you want.
Well, I've got there's a couple of different views on the history of astrology. I'm just going to pick one and kind of go from there.
Okay.
Let's see here. Stargazing and the fascination with the heavens have existed since the creation of mankind. It is said that the ancient Babylonians brought astrology to Greece in the 4th century BC. After that, it spread through Europe and was heavily practiced in Italy before the arrival of the Christian era. Other believers in astrology were Egyptians, Hindus, ancient Chinese, and the Etruscans. Somewhere around the Middle Ages, astrology became a more complex art. For a complete birth chart, also called natal chart or horoscope, you need to know the exact time of your birth down to the hour, as well as where exactly you came into this world, that is, the location of the city or town you were born. Based on this information, the astrologer looks at the positions of the moon, the constellations, and the sun, and its planets during the time of your birth. What the astrologer sees is translated into personality and character strengths and weaknesses that you are likely to possess. In the framework of astrology and planets, including the sun and the moon, influence the way we act, think, and feel. Now, one thing I like to tell people when they ask me about astrology, I use it personally more as a tool. I love psychology. I love understanding what makes people tick. And astrology is just another form of understanding everyone else. One of the first few questions I'll ever ask somebody is when their birthday is, and I'll be able to gain some perspective just from that, knowing what their sun sign is. And the sun sign is the sign that your birthday corresponds with. Charts, there are different things you can do. I know there's birth charts and relationship charts. I know you can do timeline profiles specific to month or year, as far as what your birthday is going to say or how it's going to correspond for you in that month or year. There are also horoscopes, which horoscopes are a very, very, very generic way of saying what could happen. You'll notice that maybe not every day your horoscope is accurate, but maybe once every X amount of days, weeks, or months, it is accurate. Well, because it's very, very vague in general and has to cover a wide range of people.
Does that play in the fact that because it's just going by the sign?
Yes. Now, you're more than just your sun sign. Everyone has many other signs in different planets that, like they said, that correspond to the time and place you were born. A full chart includes, sorry, nervous, my first podcast. A birth chart will include knowing, like, you'll need to know the time and place you were born, and from there, I will then go through a list and find out what sign the sun was when you were born, which is the day you were born, where the moon was, where Venus, Mercury, Mars were, and those are the main planets that usually dictate a chart. It does go further. You can do Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto. Those ones are interpreted a little bit differently, not quite as clear sometimes. And then your ascendant or your rising sign is determined entirely on the time and place you were born, and that's usually like the mask you project. So sometimes if you're talking to somebody and you're very attuned to some of the basics of the sun signs, you're talking to somebody and they exhibit traits of maybe an Aquarius, but their birthday isn't in between January 18th or 21st through February 18th, but they're instead an Aries. Well, Aquarius is the mask that they're projecting, so that's the rising sign.
I know the astrology readings I've ever gotten, sometimes they'll say like with a planet where it's rising or setting, or if I've got the terminology correct.
A rising sign is different. Planets could be, I guess I haven't delved that deeply into it to know if the planets themselves have different formations.
Okay.
The only one I know that can go retrograde is Mercury. And if Mercury's in retrograde, well, you best believe that all your electronics are going haywire. That's usually what happens. And, well, you know, you're in the age of Aquarius, as the song says.
Oh.
So, anyway, I'll give a quick description of each sign, and then I'll talk a little bit more about charts and different things from there. Aries, your key phrase tends to be "I am." Some of you may use that phrase a lot if you're an Aries. It is a fire sign, and I'll talk a little bit about the elements as well. You exhibit action, courage, adventure, leadership, independence, and your pioneering spirit. Taurus, your key phrase tends to be "I have." You are an earth sign. You exhibit validation, stability, purpose, endurance, tangible results, and comforts of life. Gemini, you tend to say "I think" a lot. You're an air sign. Yay, air sign. Logic, duality, curiosity, versatility, changeability, and communication represent Gemini. Cancer. Cancer is a water sign. You tend to say "I need." That's your key phrase. They represent home, family, nurture, responsiveness, safety and protection, hunger, and longing. Leo is "I will." It is a fire sign. They tend to exhibit, they represent heart, pride, loyalty, warmth, enthusiasm, and creative self-expression. Virgo is "I analyze." It is an earth sign, and that represents analysis, diligence, reliability, purification, detail person, and a troubleshooter. Libra. Libra is "I share." They are an air sign. Justice, artistry, elegance, diplomacy, sociability, and partnership. Scorpio is "I desire." It is a water sign. Mystery, intensity, magnetism, therapist, investigator, and agent of change. Sagittarius is "I seek." They are a fire sign. They are visionary, idealist, freedom, traveler, knowledge, guru, teacher, or mentor. Capricorn is "I respond." They are an earth sign. They have sage, builder, tenacity, stamina, responsibility, and patience. Aquarius is "I know," which I know, being an Aquarius, I say a lot. They're an air sign. They are a catalyst, reformer, inventor, individuality, knowledge, and humanitarian. And Pisces. They use "I believe." They are a water sign, and they represent faith, mysticism, absorption, dedication, compassion, and unconditional service. I didn't give the dates for each of these signs because most of us have at least some basic knowledge of when our astrological sign is. However, you can definitely look that up, or there'll be ways to get in contact later if you have additional questions.
Yeah, you can. You can always contact by the podcast email.
I had a brief brain fart. Sorry. There are many different ways to. I mean, you don't have to always do birth chart or how do I say this? There are many forms to discover more about astrology. There's tons of books out there. I know I personally probably own every single one of them. There is now books and resources out there that utilize software, so you can get put it into your computer and does most of the work for you.
Yeah, because that was the one you showed me the other day. Mm-hmm. And that was correlated to a book as well.
Yeah.
Because not only did it give a description of everything, it said that if you want more information, refer to these pages in the book.
Mm-hmm. That book is The Instant Astrologer by Lynn Burbeck. It is probably the one I use the most. I do like the idea of the computer doing most of the work for me. However, I very much have experience in doing all the lookups and everything myself. I use several different resources when somebody comes to me and asks for a birth chart or a relationship chart. There are many, many, many different books, and each book has its own interpretations. So I like to pull from different resources to give the best description I possibly can. Like I said, I tend to use astrology more for just kind of understanding what makes people tick, so I can gain a better sense of getting along with everybody. So, again, if you read, Aquarians tend to be humanitarians. We're also known as the friendliest people in the zodiac. So, I do what I can to try and get along with everybody and utilize astrology to kind of understand just little ticks about people. And astrology itself, you shouldn't, I recommend that you don't live die hard by everything that you read about as far as astrology goes or your horoscopes go. Different thing, I mean, as much as this gives us a really detailed outline of our personalities and character quirks, of course, it doesn't define who we are specifically. Our family environment and how we were raised, society, friends, different factors all play a part of who we are, and you can't learn all of that through astrology.
Yeah, the same thing goes with tarot card readings. It's pretty much seen as just a guide, and it's pretty much saying, if the things go the way they do from what you asked, this is what the possible outcome. But it's not set in stone by any stretch of the imagination.
Now, one last thing, I just said I would touch base a little bit about elements. The elements, there are 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water. There are 3 signs per each element. The fire signs in review are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Water signs are Cancer, having a brain fart, Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio, and the air signs are Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini. Now, some quick characteristics. Fire signs tend to be very extroverted. They have a little bit of a vain quality to them. That is not a bad thing. It's just part of who you are. They can be very loud and boisterous and, just very out there, outgoing. Usually you find them in competitive thing. I know Aries can be competitive. Leos are, they have their mane. So it's just very outgoing. Earth signs are very grounded individuals. They're usually the most stubborn people you meet. That's not to say that we all don't have stubborn qualities in all of us. They tend to see... I know this is going to come off negative no matter how many ways I phrase it, but they tend to be very materialistic. They know how to save money, though, and will... know how to save and put forth toward the future. Just very grounded. I mean, earth, ground, it works. Water signs are usually very emotional. They like to go with the flow, as the rivers and waters tend to do. They are also some of the sweetest people you'll ever meet because they're very empathetic. They understand. Air signs, we can be very, we tend to live in our heads, definitely more knowledgeable. We're all geeks in our own right, love to learn. Thomas laughs because I am a giant geek, and so is he.
Same here. Just guilty.
They also, we're kind of all over the map. If you ever meet somebody, we're very good at being kind of in multiple places at once, as air covers everywhere at the same time. So, just some fun little tidbits on astrology. Yeah. So,
and when we start covering the other forms of divination, you'll kind of notice how the elements kind of correlate in the same fashion as it does with astrology. And it can be put up debate if they get their influence from astrology, they just do their own form of it, but that can be up to debate. So, well, we're going to take another break again here, and when we're going to be back, we're going to talk about the crystal ball, of its use, and some tips and methods with it. So don't go away.
Oh, she will bring the buds in the spring and laugh among the flowers. In summer's heat, her kisses are sweet. She sings in leafy bowers. She cuts the cane and gathers the grain when leaves are false around her. Her bones grow old in wintry cold. She wraps her cloak around her. Oh, she will bring the buds in the spring and laugh among the flowers. In summer's heat, her kisses are sweet. She sings in leafy bowers. She cuts the cane and gathers the grain when leaves are false around her. Her bones grow old in wintry cold. She wraps her cloak around her. La 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 and she would bring the bud in the spring and laugh among the flowers. In summer's heat, her kisses are sweet. She sings in leafy bowers. She cuts the cane and gathers the grain when leaves are false around her. Her bones grow old in wintry cold. She wraps her cloak around her. Oh, she will bring the buds in the spring and laugh among the flowers. In summer's heat, her kisses are sweet. She sings in leafy bowers. She cuts the cane and gathers the grain when leaves are false around her. Her bones grow old in wintry cold. She wraps her cloak around her. She will bring the buds in the spring and laugh among the flowers. In summer's heat, her kisses are sweet. She sings in leafy bowers. La 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 la.
And we're back, everyone. Well, now we'll get to talk about the crystal ball. That is used both as a divination and as a tool. And yes, we'll get the joke out of the way right off the bat where a guy goes to a fortune teller. The fortune teller says, I'm looking for a crystal ball, and it seems very dark. And the guy says, yeah, you're looking into a bowling ball. And the fortune teller says, yeah, well, that would explain the prediction of that 7-10 split. But anyway, a crystal ball is a clear, nearly transparent piece of quartz used to stimulate the subconscious mind and to put the reader into a kind of semi-hypnotic state. Although anyone could practice divination with a crystal ball, most often users are those who already possess psychic intuition. Crystal balls were used long before the age of modern physics or even those of street fortune tellers. In India and China, crystal gazers were revered as members of their own community. They lived in a monastic life, refraining from sexual indulgence in certain foods, alcohol, or other evil devices that people believed could decrease the crystal gazer's divining powers. Scrying arrived in Europe around 5th century, and forms of scrying were also practiced by the Mayans and the North American Native Americans. And one thing to note is, like, for example, when I do a tarot card reading, I use a crystal ball as a kind of means, like this, like a second intuition. If at any point I feel like I get stumped or I get stuck on what could be the answer, is I gaze upon the crystal ball to get some further insight. Now, if you're ready to invest in a crystal ball, make sure to check around to get an idea of what composition price it may be. Buying a smaller one will reduce the cost, though larger ones may help you reach a more relaxed, intuitive state. A smaller one will do almost as well. Our friend Dave, for example, he showed us once one of the crystal balls he has, which is almost the size of, like, the Magic 8 Ball, practically. And I remember even just holding it, I could feel that sort of energy. So it can be seen as, like, the bigger the better. But, you know, if you want to start with something small, it also works just as well.
Although the Magic 8 Ball is not a crystal ball.
Yeah, we want to make that clear. That's more of the toy. Well, once you got your crystal ball, here's what you need to do in order to get ready for crystal ball gazing. Sit up straight in a chair, feet planted firmly to the ground. This is what's commonly known in paganism as grounding. Make sure that the room is at a comfortable temperature. The light should be low, with absolutely no direct sunlight entering the room. There should be no glittering, distracting objects in the room. The room must be an open space without clutter or mess. It's always good to have, like, some sort of means of organization, and especially with any types of divination, because then your mind is not so distracted. The best time of day to do this is just before the sun sets, because it's kind of the concept of that changeover. There should be no one more than 3 people, including yourself, in the room at one time. You can have the crystal on a table, or you hold in your hand. In my case, for me, my crystal ball is on a little plastic ball holder, in a sense. Now, are you calm, focused, and relaxed? If you're feeling anxious, put off doing the reading for another time. The key is to say what first comes to mind and finding the meaning of it afterwards. On some occasions, you may not get that answer right away. Other times, the vision might be shockingly clear. In the beginning, you should do shorter sittings, since the crystal ball gazing requires a lot of energy. Gradually, you'll be able to sit longer. Once again, you can almost correlate this with any sort of divination. You'll start with some simple stuff and then work your way from there. Much like anything that can practice in, like, exercise, once you start getting the hang of it, it will just come natural. Now, here's some steps for successful crystal ball reading. Close your eyes for 1 to 2 minutes, longer if needed, to help clear your head of all thoughts. Because remember, you're trying to come up with first thing that comes to mind. You don't want anything else to kind of get in that way. Open your eyes and blink normally. You can pass your left hand and then your right hand over the crystal to stimulate the circulating energy. This is a means to build it up. Look calmly into the crystal. The backdrop should fade away before you start seeing visions. Have the current ask a direct question. Say what you see. If the vision is not clear or is broken, stop. Now, there's many possible images that you can see in the crystal. In order to interpret them, there's some means of reading up on them, and we'll also kind of correlate them with some when you do further episodes about their forms of divination. Trust your instinct as well as your common sense. If you see a heart with a dagger through it, for example, it indicates love, heartbreak, or suffering. Visions seen toward the right of the crystal ball are symbolic, whereas ones to the left are meant to indicate real-life situations. Visions near the front indicate the near future. Visions near the back indicate the past. Now, here's some helpful tips to keep in mind. Clouds of white or blue are good omens. Rising visions hint at the improvement of things to come. Seeing the sun predicts success or good fortune. A snake foretells someone close to the current is deceitful. Yellow clouds indicate jealousy. Red clouds warn of current or impending danger. Green clouds indicate hope and good finances. And it's kind of interesting because, as for one that's done also candle magic, a lot of these different colors also correlate with doing the candles. Like, for example, the green is for, like, good finances or good hope. And one thing also to note about crystal balls is that they're not always just crystal. I mean, such examples of what crystal balls can be made out of is agate, amber, amethyst, diamond, emerald, ruby, sapphire. And a lot of these also have different sort of meaning. For example, ruby, this deep red or pink stone, provides a positive outlook on life and wards off bad dreams. So sometimes if you get really good at it, you can almost get to a point where you have all the different types of these different stones. So depending on what the situation or depending on what the person had asked, you can use the proper crystal ball to help in the question. And crystals, and like I said once before, it's good also to cleanse them, because these can pack up the positive and negative energies, kind of like a sponge practically. But that's pretty much what it's about with the crystal ball. And in all due honesty, much like it is what you've probably seen, it's pretty much right on the money from what I've seen, like in television and the movies and all that. And it's one of the more simpler forms, but in recommendation is if you've got that intuition. You feel like you can, if you read about a crystal ball, you feel like you can bring out that situation. That's something to look into if you're interested. And most metaphysical stores, most New Age stores, usually will have these crystal balls you can look into and see about a recommendation, as well as, of course, going online. You have any insight on that as well, Erin?
No, I'm probably less foggy of a crystal ball than I was of the tarot deck.
Well, I thought to ask.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, that concludes our first and probably what's going to be in many different parts of different forms of divination. And so this will conclude the 9th episode of the podcast. As we're going to be wrapping it up here, we got, as always, we talk about, future events. This Friday the 21st, we've got a Yule party that's happening at the Heathen Hotel in North Fargo this Friday. It's for part of the Lake Agassiz Pagan Meetup. And of course, if you haven't known, 21st is not only Yule, but it's supposedly the end of the world according to the Mayans. Woohoo! Yeah. We'll do a kind of an interesting little vlog because we're kind of doing a little celebration for Yule anyway and having some friends over, so you'll be able to see that as well. And of course, if that means you're still hearing it after the 21st, of course, that was just the Mayans saying that was just our calendar was ending. Don't worry.
You're not gonna die.
You're not gonna die.
Hey, if we can live through Y2K, I think we can live through the Mayans' version of the end of the world.
Well, that's to be on that. So, then, well, this has been Thomas Punton.
And Erin Lecy.
We're signing off, so merry meet, merry part, and blessed be.